Morning. It's Sunday, May 23rd. And for those of you who have not been paying attention or have decided that it really doesn't exist that badly anymore, let me state categorically that anti-Semitism is on the rise. And in New York City, where one of the largest Jewish population resides, outside of Israel, there have been several incidents recently of anti-Semitic acts. And these are brazen. This is not a secret. This is stuff that is going on in the streets of New York. In the Diamond District, which is predominantly Jewish, commercial fireworks were thrown at people in the streets, and rows of cars were riding by, yelling anti-Semitic slogans while they drove down the streets. And most of these anti-Semitic acts in recent weeks have been by pro-Palestinian agitators. I'll call them agitators because I think that's the appropriate word. Now, if you don't believe what I'm saying, just roam around on the social media and you will find many posts because everybody walking the streets has a phone and that took pictures of these events. So this is not anything that I am making up. This is not any falsehood. This is actually happening in New York City. By the violence and by the words that have been spoken by these pro-Palestinian agitators, this really has nothing to do with the conflict in Palestine. This is pure, outright hatred of Jews. So, on 47th Street in the Diamond District, commercial fireworks were thrown into the crowds of people walking in the streets. And then cars were riding down the streets, yelling anti-Semitic slogans at the people walking in the streets. Imagine that. A parade of cars riding down 47th Street yelling anti-Semitic tropes out at the people in the streets. You can see the videos of the fireworks out in the social media. Then in another incident, we see videos of a Jewish man being viciously beaten. 7 pro-Palestinian thugs. And how can we say that these are pro-Palestinian? Because they're wearing Palestinian keffiyeh scarves wrapped them around their faces. And they're beating this man with sticks and kicking him while he's lying in the middle of the road. And then somebody stopped and intervened to stop the attack, covering the victim's body with his own body as the assailants scattered. And then while the man is lying on the ground, writhing in pain, other protesters are running towards him, shouting abuse and trying to kick him. Is that what we have come to in this country, in New York City, in broad daylight? I don't think that this really has anything to do with people protesting because there's actions going on in Israel. This is just the hatred of Jews rising to the surface and the opportunity to do damage to them. And why? Why have we suffered this abuse for many millennia? I don't know the answer to that question. But this incident is now going to be investigated by the Hate Crime Task Force in New York City, part of the police department. I don't know if there's any doubt in anybody's mind that this was a hate crime. Now, one could ask, how did these 7 assailants know that this man was a Jew? Well, he was wearing a kippah out in public, and that's all they needed. And it set them off. So now, are we supposed to walk the streets and hide our beliefs? No. We have to stand up and face down these maniacs that are running loose. And New York is not the only place that blatant anti-Semitism has risen to the surface. In Belgium, Noah Lang, who plays for Club Bruges, was filmed at a raucous scene after a victory. After his team won the Belgian national title this season, he shouted out to the crowd, "I'd rather die than be a sporting Jew." And this remark was made in reference to the Bruges rivals, Anderlecht, who are often described by hostile supporters as a Jewish club. So we have a world-class soccer player proclaiming in public at a crowd, a mob scene, one might call it, celebrating their victory, saying he'd rather die than be a Jew. So New York is not the only place where anti-Semitism is on the rise. It's a rise all around the world, it seems to me. And did this guy, Noah Lang, get sanctioned by the owners of his club? No, they stood up and supported him. They were backing him. The Club Bruges management issued a statement firmly backing him and offering no apology for his anti-Semitic remarks. Now, apparently in that part of the world, this is acceptable. And it turns out that many of the soccer clubs in the Belgian league have nicknames like the Nags and the Borges and the Smurfs and the Jews. One team is actually nicknamed the Jews. I find that more than offensive. I grew up in a neighborhood where we had nicknames for a lot of people, but none of the nicknames reflected on your race. They reflected on your personality. There was one gentleman who we hung out with, whose name was Leonard, but his clothes were always wrinkled, so we called him Lenny Nonknecht. Now, Nonknecht in Yiddish means wrinkled. And if I wanted to rant on much longer, I could find many other incidents around the world of blatant anti-Semitism. But I've said my piece on this, and this is a part of society deteriorating, and it's part of what we're living with in the United States, not only against Jews, but against many other minorities. And I don't have to mention all of them, and I don't have to mention the attacks on different ethnic groups. I will just say that it's a sorry situation in the United States and a sorry situation around the world. Know if it's ever going to get fixed, because human beings have personality traits that require for their self-esteem that somebody must be lower than them. I'll let you think about that, and I'll see you in the morning. Bye.